Hey, welcome to my channel, JC Photography. Are you new to photography and wonder how people get these beautiful pictures all the time? Or are you a seasoned veteran and just wanting a couple tips or tricks on how to improve your pictures? Are you sick and tired of all your pictures coming out dark, grainy, or even blurry, maybe a combination of all of the above? And you're sick of scrolling on social media and you see all these beautiful pictures that everybody seems to be getting left and right? Well, I'm on board with you. If you're like me, you get a picture that looks like this. It's dark, it's grainy, the composition is terrible, and it's an overall unusable photo. But don't stress. I'm here to help you save your photos using some post-processing so that you can create an artistic image like this from a starting point that looks more like this. If you like some of the information in this video and you found it helpful, please be sure to like the video. If you didn't, leave a dislike and let me know why in the comments down below. I want to hear what you have to say. And if you did like the video, as always, subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon so that you do not miss any future uploads. So you want better pictures. The first step is to get your settings right in camera. The most important setting to set is to make sure that you capture photos in RAW format. This means that you have the most flexibility in post-processing compared to something such as JPEG, which does some of the post-processing for you. Assuming you have all your settings squared away. Next thing is to use good technique and good composition when taking your photos. To try to get this, try to get as close to eye level of your subject as possible. This is a problem I have in my own photography. If you shoot up, for example looking at birds, you just get a belly shot. Or if you look down, you'll notice that a lot of the foreground and the background becomes in focus, creating a very distracting background, making the photo not appealing to the eye. Even if you have to lay on your belly to get the shot, sometimes it could be worth it, such as in this picture of a swan, which if I got just a little bit closer to the ground, I feel like this picture could have been saved. And while it might not always be possible, if you can try to get on a similar level to your subject, you can get a nice portion of the picture in focus while having a nice blurry background. This effect, also known as bokeh, is a product of your camera's aperture. Cameras with a faster aperture, i.e. a lower f number, can create this visual effect much easier than those, say at f11 or higher. When you're trying to compose your framing, try to put your subject as close to the lens as you possibly can while maintaining focus. This will help keep your subject in focus and try to blur your background by having it a further distance away from your lens. Remember, the further the background is from your subject, the more blurry your background will become. Understanding your camera is key, but not only that, understanding your subject as well. The point of editing is to create something artistic, so trying to take artistic photos is what we're going to try to achieve. Maybe try a little bit of backlighting in a picture similar to this, or if you're up for it, maybe a little bit of action shots, and you can get some interesting shots such as this bird in flight. Before we begin editing, let's look at some of the properties for this picture. First off, I shot this wide open from my lens at an f6.3. I shot it on my camera, which is a full frame sensor. It is the Lumix S5 Mark II. It has dual native ISO, which means that this picture might be cleaner than what you might take on your Sony, your Canon, or your Nikon, depending on what kind of camera you personally have. I shot this at 1/1000th of a second for my shutter speed. I did not want my shutter speed to go beyond that, so that means my ISO had to be quite high, and it was roughly 6400 for this particular shot. That means, as you look at the background, you will see a substantial amount of noise, but no worries because some denoising tool will clean that right up. To access the Lightroom denoising tool, go to the noise reduction panel and hit denoise. A dialog box will pop up, and there will be a slider where you can select the amount you want to denoise your picture. Try not to go too high or your picture might look fake. When you're satisfied with the results, just hit OK. We can see how well the denoising tool works, by how clean the bokeh is in the background, and how the sharpness is maintained around our subject. When you're in Lightroom, you can make global adjustments to your pictures. This means it will adjust the entire picture. This can be things from the white balance, to the contrast, to the overall brightness of your picture. However, keep in mind, this does affect the entire picture, and might not give you that fine-tuned control that you are looking for. To get that, you're going to use what's called a mask in Lightroom. It allows you to edit just part of your picture using certain selections that you, the user, get to choose. After editing your picture to taste, it is time to start manipulating certain aspects of our image. Generally speaking, I love to start with the pop of our subject. There's a new AI tool in Lightroom that selects just the subject and makes it pop from your frame as shown. Be sure to apply it, but be sure to not overdo it. Generally, I do not go above 150 for this, because your subject might look too bright for your image. Next, try to identify where the light source for your picture is. By saying that the light around this particular squirrel is around most of the sides and favors the left side, we can dictate that the top left of the screen is where the sun was shining. To mimic the sun, we will use what is called in Lightroom as a radial mask. Using a radial mask, we can bump up the exposure and adding a little bit of warmth, we can create what looks like the sun shining in the background of our picture. Again, don't be too lenient with this, as too much exposure or too much warmth can ruin your picture. I'll apply a similar idea to the bottom left of our image. Using another radial mask, I will actually lower the exposure to create more of a shadow-like effect. Again, be sure to not overdo it. The eye is arguably the most important part of your subject, and you want to make sure it looks the best. Using the brush tool, be sure to brush over the entirety of your subject's eye. The trick to make it look more glossy is once it's fully brushed in, bump up the exposure to taste. Usually for this, I do not bump it up all the way. Next, navigate down to the detail panel and turn up the noise all the way up to 100. You'll see that the eye looks a little bit more glossy than we started with, and the whites look a little bit whiter and the darks look a little bit darker while maintaining a little bit more color than we started with. To create more of a 3D visual style, we're going to accentuate the highlights as well as the shadows of our picture. To do this, we're going to use a brush mask. Turning up the exposure and turning up the warmth will paint over our highlighted areas and it will make them glow a little bit more. Do this to taste, but we'll also do a similar effect on the shadows. For this, we'll use a brush mask, we will turn down the exposure, and we'll also make them a little bit cooler to give more of a blue tone to them. Be sure to not go too heavy-handed with this as well. The more edits we make, the more chance we have of making our picture look fake and over-edited. The trick here is to be as subtle as possible, only applying these edits where they are absolutely needed to create more of a three-dimensional look. When all is said and done, we can see how we transform this very flat and very dull looking picture of a squirrel into a popping, more vibrant, more three-dimensional looking image that I believe is more appealing to the viewer. Well, here's the final product. I'm very happy with how this turned out. The squirrel is nice and sharp. I feel like the colors in the background are nice and full, but also subtle. The background is nicely blurred, and we get that little bit of hint of the sun in the top left corner. If you enjoyed the video, or you found it useful, why not leave a thumbs up? And subscribe so that you can get more photography tips and tricks in the future. With that being said, my name is Justin. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day, and take care.